Good afternoon, Marty.
Good afternoon from the frozen tundra of Wisconsin.
Oh, wow.
I flew up from California to have some meetings here at Crandon today, and you can tell I've got my hot coffee here, and I've got my lumberjack shirt. I'm good to go. Ready to talk some off-road racing. From Crandon and Baja and anywhere else. So nice to see you guys, and thank you again for the invitation. I very much
Could
appreciate
not be any more perfect for you.
Yeah, you're locked in there, Marty.
it. It's locked in. It's green. It's Christmas. It's the whole thing. It's a whole deal. So we're good.
Sounds good.
Nice. Marty, good to see you again. It's been a while.
George, it's been a while, man. I appreciate you being on here and kind of walking me through what we're going to talk about today, and always being there for Racer. It's always been a great experience to be part of the family there, and I enjoy it very much, and have a wonderful chance to come back now and be a contributor again. And as soon as that happened, the Baja 1000 happened, then unfortunately we lost a couple of icons with Malcolm Smith, who everybody knows about from On Any Sunday. And then really one of the most significant people we lost that people didn't know the story about was really Mary McGee.
Awesome.
Was the first woman everything.
Incredible story she has.
Incredible story. First woman motocross racer, first woman to ever race in the Mexican Baja 1000, the first woman to finish the Baja 1000. And she was in a truck actually for a factory team with Peter Brock. Everybody knows it was a BRE factory team that went down there. And she finished in 68. And then she was the first woman to ever solo the Baja 500 in 1975. And she has a legacy on motocross, sports car racing. It was an amazing story. And, the fact that she just passed the day after Malcolm, and it was the day before her documentary, which was on ESPN 30 for 30, was called Motorcycle Mary, came out, is, I knew her. I spent some time with her. She was a pistol. She was something else. She was exactly the kind of gal you'd think would accomplish those things. And like I said, it was a loss for all of us.
I bet. Just to add a little context to that, I mean, as you mentioned, she may not be a household name, but I believe Lewis Hamilton was one of the producers of that 30 for 30. So it just goes to show, the impact that she had in the community and those who had the pleasure of meeting her.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how that all came about. I got to spend some time with Mary a couple of years ago as an escort for her at the Nora 500. She was the grand marshal, as it were, and her filmmaker Haley Watson came as well. And Lewis's name wasn't in the mix at that time. He made something that he came on afterwards. Yep. But I think that the cool part is there were some pictures of this year. It may have been the Grand Prix in Canada. I'm not sure, but Mary was in the paddock, and she just speaking with Lewis, and then Martin Brundle actually, it was the grid walk, and he actually kind of knelt down with Mary. She was in a wheelchair, and he knew her story, and it was a really touching moment. Here we've got this kind of off-road racer. She was big in the motorcycle world, but even when I done some history on the Baja 1000, her name was there, but I never really dug into who she was until like a couple of years ago. And it's remarkable. And the fact, even alone that she raced Porsches for Václav Polak, in the West Coast, who was, eventually became the Can-Am entrant, and for Milt Minter and all those guys. He was West Coast Porsche, factory racing, and she raced for him in a Spider, 550 Spider, I think it was. Amazing. Like, you just don't think that could happen in one person, but it did.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, let's turn attention to Crandon, where you are right now. This is this upcoming event next year in 2025 will be the 55th edition of the Crandon World Championships, and I think it's the 9th of the Red Bull World Cup.
No, so that was this year. So behind me, you see this it is for this year. So it's a 56th next year.
56th next year, gotcha.
56th next year, but this year was the 55th and 9th year for the Red Bull Cup, which is kind of a combined weekend where we have all these disciplines of off-road now come. It was not just short course racing here at Crandon. This is obviously the biggest short course race in the world, but we also have now added Ultra 4 rock racing and the burgeoning Class 11s, which are the stock Volkswagens that have been around forever. There's a race this weekend out of Laughlin that I think there's 59 cars entered.
Wow.
59 stock Volkswagens. I don't know if we're going to find them. But the point is that this class has kind of really picked up, and we have a Class 7 World Championship here, and we have night racing here. So it's an all-encompassing off-road weekend. Obviously, the stars of the show that have pushed this thing along for long here has been real short course off-road racing. Pro 2, Pro 4s, the Johnny Greases and CJ Greases of the world and those guys. And it's what our fans, I think we had 58,900 fans this year over the 3 days. And it was a great weekend with weather. So if you know anything about Wisconsin or the Midwest, you're, as a promoter, you're rolling the dice like, okay, we can do all this preparation, all this planning, but to do all those races in the 3 days that we have, actually it's 2.5. It's about 52 races that we do back to back to back. So any kind of rain is going to ruin that schedule. The music side of it, the parade downtown, whatever it's going to be is going to all weather dependent. So it was beautiful this year. And we really enjoyed that. And I think the biggest thing that we did, George, this year is in cooperation with MAV TV, we were able to finally kind of get my vision to come to life. And we produced 15.5 hours of live television from Crandon. Yeah. That doesn't include Champ Off-Road Series, which is on Fox, FS2, and they live streamed the flow racing. But MAV we basically set up a production group here, and we had a feed Friday from the parade all the way to the Red Bull Cup race on Sunday night. And like I said, it was 15.5 hours of live television that we produced here. Very proud of that. That's never happened in off-road racing ever. That's never happened live. There's live streaming, but this is actually, on a cable network. So super proud of that. We were also introduced for the first time in-car cameras in short course racing, live in-car cameras, which is a whole new byproduct of the Starlink system. And there's a gentleman named George another George, who actually figured out a way to get a box in there so that the live streaming could go out over the internet and build a network here. Oh, wow. So we could cut to live in-car camera shots without a satellite or without a helicopter, excuse me. So it's all using these Starlink systems now. It's changed the way fundamentally desert racing is going to be seen, and it did at the Baja 1000, and it certainly is here. For our sport, I don't think one innovation is going to change how coverage is done more than the live stream, because now you can even hook up Bluetooth to the helmet so you can get a cell phone call racing the race from your wife through your helmet, or potentially you can now have announcers link up and talk to the drivers, and they're in the middle of Baja. I mean, there was hours of coverage at the Baja 1000. They did a very good job of doing that. And, it's amazing to watch like these perfectly clear images come out of these trophy trucks, and it's changed everything. So, but we adopted some of that right away and said, hey, we need to have short course on. So Red Bull Sunday also had them in a couple of the Ultra 4 cars, the Ford factory cars of Vaughn Gittin and Lauren Healy. And then we had one actually in a Class 11 car too. So we had live camera. So it was great. So all that production, all that work. And so when you add it all up, it's just a lot of content coming out of this place. And it should be. It's exciting. It's compelling. And you can do it. We had a game day set here that we now built so that between races, we could cut to live interviews or features that we had cut. All that type of thing was really, really cool.
Yeah, super. For those who don't know, Marty, can we just pause and give us a quick history lesson on Crandon and what it's about? 55 plus years the place has been around, and you're out a couple hours from Green Bay, Wisconsin, right? So you're out in Wisconsin farm country out there, and what's the, and it's a community owned facility, I believe. Is that correct?
It's a family. Yeah. So how Crandon worked? We were actually 2 hours northwest of Green Bay. So we're actually North Woods. We're not in the farm. We're up in the woods towards Canada. Yeah. All the lakes and the beautiful area here. There's farms here too. But this all came about in 1968 when the Wide World of Sports showed the Baja Mexican 1000 at the time, Volta Baja, and there were some people here in town who said, "Hey, we ought to have our own off-road racing. We ought to do the same thing." So they built the community got together, the service clubs got together, and they basically did a 25-mile loop through the forest for 4 laps. Plus, there was an extra distance, was 101 miles. And the race was called the Brush Run 101. And it literally went through the forest. And it happened for years and years. And it was first started in 1970. And then it evolved and evolved to finally in the 80s. The nonprofit club bought the facility we're at now. It was an old dairy farm. In fact, the building I'm in is actually the dairy barn downstairs.
Yeah.
And from there, now it evolved to really became a specialized sport. It was, at beginning it was Baja Bugs and Volkswagen Beetles and Jeeps and motorcycles. And, obviously it's not desert racing. So it evolved its own sport. And, several years ago, the Flannery family here, it was a prominent name here in Crandon. Now, Crandon, you got to remember, there's only 1,200 people now in town. So it's a small little hamlet, but 400 acres out, about a mile from town is where we are. And the family purchased it from the club and became a for-profit enterprise. And, thankfully, the Flannerys have generations, Cliff Flannery is a guy who was here for 56 years building it. Now his son Jason is the president, and then their kids are here. I live in California, but I'm the promoter who comes in and helps them to do that. And our office manager Tina Kuloff is here, and but it's evolved. It was always big. It was always a big deal because it was on. What was great about it in the late '80s, Marty Reed at the time was a television production producer and announcer in Indianapolis. Came up and started showing off-road racing in Crandon on ESPN. So you imagine at that time, everybody watched ESPN. An hour of Crandon, like in that time, it was Walker Evans versus, Jack Flannery versus Robbie Gordon. Rod Hall was here. All these guys were here racing here, and they did short course at Riverside too. That was another race that Score International did. And then some of those guys came here. Some of the guys from here went out west. Walker Evans was a big one, big influence. Kurt LeDuc, those guys all came, and to see what was going on at the time to millions of people, essentially in the late 80s, that really put Crandon on the map. And then, then we have 2 events, and it certainly is part of the World Championship now. So yeah, that's what's going on here. Yeah.
You've already mentioned a couple of the legends that have been there. Walker Evans, Rob McEachran's another one.
Yeah.
The late Kyle LeDuc, who we all miss. The roll call of winners at that event is huge, and at some level you could say that that their presence at the event makes the event so big. But I also think that it's equally true that their presence there and their victories there make their legend big, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, and Walker Evans said it best, right? He said, "Look, you can't call yourself an off-road champion until you win at Crandon." And he comes every year. And it didn't matter if it was Carl Renezetter or Johnny Greaves, like you said, or Scott Douglas, or all these Hall of Famers, right? The sport, just like IndyCar, you got to have the one race you got to win. You got to win the Indy 500. If you're going to be in short course off-road racing, especially, you've got to win at Crandon, especially Crandon Sunday, because now that's the big weekend. That Sunday race we put on with Red Bull is no points. It's right. It's all for the money, all for the glory, all for the television. And that really separates. And that's what brought back the West Coast guys again, because we create our own set of rules. So there was like a balance of performance, because there were 2 series at one time. As soon as the West Coast guys like Kyle LeDuc, Ryan Beat, all those guys started coming back out here again, it's like, oh my God, Crandon. Because we were on the West Coast with, much smaller crowds and on a dirt lot, whereas Crandon is nothing like, it's a field of dreams. It's all grass, except for the racetrack. It's very typical. But the other thing that made it is the fans, right? You've got 3-4 generations of fans here who come every year. This is what they do on Labor Day. It's the last big blowout before summer happens. And, these fans, they want to have their ashes sprinkled in turn 1. Not that we can condone that at all, but it's happened. And, it's part of the fabric up here. It's just like the guys are talking about in Baja, it's part of the fabric down there. It's a wholly unique event within the off-road space, and actually a wholly unique event in motorsports. It's just not, there's a different vibe here. And whenever you talk to whoever's been around, whether it's Wilfred Eibach or Ralph Shaheen, Chris Jacobs, who was here hosting this year, we had the president, CEO of MAV TV. We had some Toyota people here who had set up. We have a relation with them. They were blown away by just how different it is here. And I think at the end of the day, that's the beauty of this, is that a lot of the off-road activity is based on the West Coast. It doesn't matter if it's a lifestyle in Glamis, or it's Baja, or it's the Mint 400, or the King of the Hammers. It's all out there, but we're in here. So you have to want to come to get here, right? I mean, if you're a company or you want to display, or you want to, bring your tractor trailer, activate, you got to want to cut them Crandon, because it's a long way. It's a long way.
It's an effort. Yeah.
But, we've worked really hard to make it worthwhile. And we have 2 races a year coming up next year again. And, it's just a cultural phenomenon that whenever I bring anybody here, I love bringing newbies here and let them go out to the campgrounds and see what these people have set up. Because people come here and they stay for 5 days. It's camping. It's 2,500 grass camping spots that are all reserved. And the camping was the secret sauce that made Crandon viable, because people weren't coming for one day and coming back the next day like we were doing on the West Coast. They came and they stayed. And so we've had big concerts here before. We're trying to do that again. We had Kiss last year and Kid Rock in 2019. That's a different kind of financial aspect to that. But that whole lifestyle event is what we're working on to grow. And I'm thankful that it's here, because it wouldn't exist. You couldn't sketch this out in a corporate, environment and say, here's what we're going to build. This is organic as it gets. And we've kept raising the bar in terms of the event and its prestige, and it's become more known. Crandon is much more known to the greater motorsports community. I'm proud of that. You go to PRI next week and people know you, and they know what Crandon is now. That didn't exist 5 years ago. Short course, we moved the Baja 1000, and they probably knew King of the Hammers and the Mint, because those are just entrenched. Not this place, and it's great. It's wonderful to push the sport along or pull it along, however you want to look at it. And there's the short course element is so great because it's so spectator friendly. You got to understand, these run the gamut from little kids in these little trophy carts to almost 950 horsepower all wheel drive Toyota Pro 4s that the Johnny and CJ Greaves race. And it's truly intense. It's the most intense thing I've ever seen in motorsports, period, because you're so close to it here. And it's just so loud and visceral. And it's the guys are, bodies are flying. I mean, it's not monster truck race any means. It's racing. These guys are going at it, and it's exciting to watch.
Yep. My earlier session about an hour ago was with Melissa Eickhoff, who runs the Pikes Peak Hill Climb.
Yep.
And there's so many similarities between Pikes Peak and Crandon and some of these other events in motorsports that are kind of like these little sort of, I use the term little, probably not in the right way. It's these things that kind of started grassroots, that started as very community focused, and they've grown so tremendously, particularly in the last few years. There was definitely an acceleration at Pikes Peak. I was thinking about it while I was talking to Melissa, because I lived in Colorado in the mid 2000s. And there was a period there where it was like, does that event even still happen anymore? And then it picked up speed again, sort of around maybe 2010, 2012, and it just kept growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And as you mentioned, Crandon's really accelerated in the last decade or so as well. But yet they maintained their sort of original, authentic charm. They maintained that sense of community. They maintain that sense of like you said, it's that field of dreams. You can drive by Crandon, on May 1st or on July on October 1st, and it's like, what do you mean they hold a huge off-road short course racing event here, right? How do you as the promoter work? Because you've talked about the innovation that's happening there at the same time and the building of it. Because at the end of the day, it's a business, right? Like, we have to recognize that. But you want to keep that authenticity and that vibe that is what makes the event so special. How do you guys maintain that balance?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned, Melissa. She's been here quite a few times too, and loves it here. And I'm happy to see what she's doing at Pikes Peak. And the couple of things that you have to understand. One is that despite the level of competition, whether it's the Ultra 4 cars, the Pro 2 Pro, a majority of the racers are sportsmen. Yeah. So, and that
like
just
likes
Pike. They just race here on in the Midwest within 4 hours. So that's been that way for a long time. So they generationally come back. That's a cornerstone. You have to have that. You couldn't have a big weekend like that without the sportsman racers, because again, it's back eight, it's camping. That's one thing. And although you have to have an emphasis on the pros, because that's what television wants, that's what sponsors want, that's
Sure.
that. But you're right. The big thing I learned early on is I started wanting to almost like polish the diamond too much. Like you all this tradition, whether it's the pricing, whether it's the wings, the cheese curds, the moonshine, you're like, oh, some of this is just not corporately gonna work, because the job was to promote, but also bring in more sponsorship, more support for the track, the event, just racers. And if you think corporate, you think that. Yeah. But that's not what works. What works is bringing those people here, like we do now. We have a separate camping area for them that Cliff Flannery stocks with fish. They come like we did with our MAV TV guests or Polaris guests or Toyota guests, and we set up trailers for them in the back on their own pond, and they have fishing. There's we have generators, but there's fishing lures there and rods, so they can fish the pond that's right at their camper. But they then at night come around and they see all the authenticness of this. They don't go back to the hotel, they stay here. And the magic of Crandon is here at the racetrack. It's not anywhere else. But as soon as you understand, hey, I can polish a lot of this. I can do a lot of great storytelling. But this is Americana at its finest. This is, and even Paul Fanner, who's been here, says, this is the Indianapolis 500 of Labor Day. This is exactly the same thing. It's America. It's the Midwest. It's patriotism all day long. We do a big opening ceremony with Lee Greenwood song. We literally have, you got to picture this, George. You have just before the Pro 2, Pro 4 race, which is the finale of the weekend, we bring all of the drivers in front of this giant hill of spectators, right? 25,000 spectators. And they basically line up. And then we basically have Kurt LeDuc will lead us into this singing of, proud to be an American, God bless the USA. And the whole hill is singing to the drivers, and the drivers are standing on top of their trucks. And there isn't more. It's amazingly strong. It started in COVID when we did that the first time, and Kurt actually did that. And now it's a tradition every year. And then we do the driver introductions, on television. But that moment when it's a beautiful afternoon on a Sunday, and tomorrow you have the day. Tomorrow's a national holiday, but we're going to enjoy this right now. And it's the biggest race of the year, and it happens just at the right time of day, and there's beautiful light. I mean, it gives you chills because the grass all looks beautiful. It looks like the Field of Dreams. And, I think, like I said, there's elements of all the parade downtown where we take all the race cars and go downtown for 2 hours, 3 hours. And, people are just walking, getting autographs, and the kids are everywhere sitting in the race cars. And, everybody's just having a great time. That's all part of the tradition here. It's part of what happens here. And, you can tweak it and you can improve on some things. And certainly the facilities improved quite a bit. The hospitality, the building, the structures, the infrastructure is all improved here. Yeah. But that continues every year. But the core magic is it can only happen in Crandon, and it can only happen with the forefathers and what they started. And it was a back home, down home way to raise some money and bring people to the community. And, it still does, but in a much bigger way now. Yeah.
It's so much a part of maintaining that magic. And you talk about the partnerships, and it's such a lesson in saying that I think making sure that those partners, that they're there to buy into that magic. They don't want that magic to go away, right? That's what they want to be associated with. And if you over sanitize it, if you overproduce it in the wrong ways, you lose the magic. Inevitably, you lose the partners. So it becomes a lost cause, right? And keeping, like you said, you want to make the experience amazing, and you want to raise the level in the right places, but you don't want to lose what it is that makes the thing special in the first place.
No, you have. The hard part is, like if I go to a corporate guy and say, hey, we're going to take you to the Indy 500, they all know what that is. They get it. Yeah. Here, sometimes it takes 2, 3, 4 years for them to finally say, I'm going to take my Labor Day weekend. I'm going to go to Wisconsin. Marty's finally convinced me I'm going to go. Once they get here, they always remember it. They never want to leave. And that's part of the magic here, but it just have to work harder at sometimes. But we're getting to the point where everybody knows that's where they need to be. Indianapolis 500, yep, that's Memorial Day. Crandon Labor Day, we're going to keep that. So it's a great juxtaposition and a great bookend to both.
Yeah. Hey, we have a couple of minutes left before we got to jump off. But can you quickly just tell us, Marty, for people who are new to the sport, how do they get involved? Where do they go to get more information?
They can just go to Crandon Off-Road or to our Facebook page or Instagram, and we're updating all our social media stuff. That's one thing that we're lagging behind in still a little bit, but we're kind of on Labor Day, we're sold out, so we can't really. Until we can find more place to put people, we're kind of almost maxed out here. So
cool. We have a special video for you, Marty, that our team put together that you sent over. So why don't we watch that to wrap up the interview? A great video about Crandon.
Great.
I'm moving like the wind through the trees, like a train on the track. There ain't no stopping me. Let your wheels spin free.
Great video. What a great way to end this session. And, that basically summarizes everything you said, right?
Hey, man, we sell dreams and gasoline here. That's what we do. Actually, everybody this week who's your guest is selling the same thing. We just put it to music. But hey, it's part of, you can see kind of some of the magic here. And like I said, that's just a little glimpse of what we do here. But I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to talk about a little off-road racing and certainly talk a little bit about Crandon, and looking forward to seeing everybody next week out at PRI. So
EPARTRADE is a digital platform that we've created basically to make life easier in the business community of auto racing.
EPARTRADE, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier.
When you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information, and then from there it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
EPARTRADE really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
Looking for a quick fix of motorsports news? The Speed Sport Daily is what you need. It's a free racing newsletter delivered directly to your email every day. We'll cover the winners and the losers and tell you who's making news off the track. It's NASCAR, NHRA, World of Outlaw, IndyCar, and so much more. Go to speedsport.com today and get signed up for America's free racing newsletter and get your daily motorsports fix. The Speed Sport Daily.
Land speed record holder George Poteet's Speed Demon rocketed 481 miles per hour at the Bonneville Salt Flats. You don't go that fast without ARP fasteners.
There is no way that we could go the speed that we've gone, the number of times we've gone, with a lesser quality bolt than ARP supplies to us. And we absolutely wouldn't be where we were today if it weren't for ARP.
When failure is not an option, it's ARP-bolts.com.
We're Performance Plus Global Logistics. Our team of dedicated performance industry and logistics experts get valuable cars and components to the track on time in top condition. We provide expedited logistics solutions for the performance industry using direct routes instead of deferred options, and communicate all necessary information to the appropriate resources to meet regulations and ensure a smooth transit and secure delivery, both domestically and internationally. And we exceed customer expectations by providing best-in-class service with an efficient and cost-effective system in place. Contact us today to book your next shipment.
Scott Lewis & Associates, the sales, marketing, and branding specialist for the automotive performance industry since 1988. We get our manufacturers on track by opening an extensive distribution network, providing product training to sales staff, creating fully integrated sales and marketing strategies, building successful industry partnerships, attending trade shows, events, and races, offering first-class support to customers. SLAI delivers solutions that win you sales. To get in touch with an SLAI representative, call 516-378-6100. Go to scottlewisinc.com or email info@scottlewisinc.com.
With roots in the Midwest that date back well before the Model T, Fifth Third Bank has a long history of serving the needs of automotive companies. While much has changed over the years, our passion for helping businesses put cars on the road and on the track has not. Today, we are more committed than ever as a member of SEMA, a founding member of PRI, and a sponsor of multiple race teams across several racing series.
For over a decade, Fifth Third Bank has been a staunch supporter of our industry and a great partner for many companies in the motorsports field.
Our business has been growing extremely fast, and really we could not be where we are today without Fifth Third. They provided amazing strategic advice, the capital we need to support our phases of growth.
They are true partners for me now, and what they do with their involvement in motorsports is untouched in this community.
Where can we take your business? Fifth Third Bank.
You work as hard as your truck, and you have no time for downtime. That's why more truck owners trust Blue Def, America's #1 diesel exhaust fluid brand. Each batch is guaranteed pure, so you can avoid costly repairs caused by inferior DEF. Demand America's best for your truck with Blue Def and Blue Def Platinum. Put trust in your truck.
When it comes to pushing the limits of performance, the pros know there's no room for compromise. At Crowder Cams, we don't just engineer camshafts and valve train components, we redefine what power means. Since 1955, Crowder Cams has been the name trusted by racers, engine builders, and gearheads around the globe. Whether you're building a street machine, a dragster, or a track car, Crowder Cams provides the muscle you need to dominate. And with Crowder, victory is within your reach.
For over 25 years, Wisconsin-based C-Tech Manufacturing has been engineering and manufacturing the toughest, most accessible aluminum tool drawers, cabinets, carts, and tactical storage solutions for America's hardest working professionals. Whatever you need to store and however you need to store it, put your trust in C-Tech Manufacturing. We build it better. Visit our new website at ctechmanufacturing.com or give us a call at 715-355-8842.
If you're watching this video, you might be wondering, what is WPC? WPC is a surface treatment designed to reduce friction and increase the strength of metal parts. As much as it might seem like a coating, WPC is actually a surface treatment. Think of it like shot painting, but the media is much finer, like talc. So what you're left with is a super hard, smooth surface that actually has some proprietary dry lubricants embedded within it. For more information, visit WPCtreatment.com.